This is episode 13 of the Gambling Still Sucks podcast. In this episode, we'll discuss dealing with the guilt of financial issues caused by a gambling problem. Hey there, everyone. My name is Jamie. I am a compulsive gambler, and I'm also the host of this show. The last day I gambled was July 15th of 2010. One thing that I've struggled with throughout my recovery from my gambling problem is coming to grips with the financial fallout. Even after we stop gambling, we still then, and usually only then, start to really address the financial pressures and problems that we created for ourselves when we were gambling. And it's really only been in the last, say, 3 or 4 months that I've really kind of come to grips and become, I don't want to say comfortable with, but I've accepted the losses that I had and have kind of rechanneled my thought process on those losses. And it's really helped me to deal with it. So I wanted to share some of that with you today, because I know this is an area that people struggle with quite a bit. It's something that I see quite often early on is, how do I get over the losses? How do I stop thinking about all the money and what I could have done with that money? And we all know that we can't go back. And I think at times we just have no idea what to do. And unfortunately, that often leads us right back to the problem again, because we see gambling as the only way out financially. So I'll go back a few months, and I was listening to some other podcasts, and it really just got me thinking. I was kind of struggling with the thought of, man, I'm still 7.5 years later, I'm still paying off some of these debts that I created for myself a long, long time ago. And a lot of my debts are just, stupid debts, absolutely stupid debts. Things that should have been taken care of at the time that would have cost me no money or $20 or $30. But because I let them linger and linger and linger, I have fees upon fees and interest in years. And now they're costing me several $1,000s each one. And there are many of these things. So it's been something that when you look back, you say, man, how stupid was I? All I had to do was fill out this paperwork or turn in this $20 or $30, and I wouldn't have this $3,000 to $4,000 bill that's sitting in front of me. And so it's absolutely a stupid tax. If anyone listens to the Dave Ramsey show, he's a great guy on financial stuff, and he always talks about stupid tax. And it was definitely a stupid tax that I paid, and I paid heavily for my stupid tax. And so it's something that's really easy for me to get down on myself and be like, man, that was so dumb. And now you're still dealing with this. And it's the financial weight. Anytime you're in debt, there's that huge financial weight. You can almost physically feel it on you. And I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. And as the debt slowly starts to go away, the financial pressures, definitely that weight starts to come off you. And I'm starting to feel it come off me. I'm getting towards the end of my debt payments, which is awesome. But along the way, I look back now and I'm not disappointed, but it's frustrating that I spent 7.5 years really struggling with this concept. And so I'll kind of share, like I said, what I'm doing now and how my thought process has changed to help me kind of free my thoughts. But before we get to that part, I just want to kind of continue on and talk about the line of thought that I had for the last 7.5 years, because that's probably the thought that you're struggling with right now. And it really is that, hey, gambling has cost me X amount of dollars, or it's not even, aside from the financial things, these relationships. But with this being about financials, we'll stick to the financials. So in my case, at one point, when I had stopped gambling for a while, I went back through and I dug through some bank records and credit card statements and all those types of things. And I figured out how much I had spent on gambling. And the amount spent is irrelevant, but it was a 6-figure amount. And it was just, the amount it was just because that's the amount of money I had access to over those years. And I think that's one thing that is a fallacy of gambling, that money will solve the problem, but it doesn't. It just creates a bigger problem, and it just escalates the amount of wins and escalates then the amount of losses. And so for me personally, it was a 6-figure amount that I had lost. And for a lot of years, that 6-figure amount alone was like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? And this is so stupid. And I just continued to beat myself up over that, beat myself up with it. And I could have invested back into my business. I could have taken all these trips. I could have bought our house. I could have done all sorts of things with that money that I took and played poker with and lost. And so that's how I thought about it for a long, long time. And when it was just that low six-figure amount, it was frustrating. But now, fast forward 7.5 years, and I've been paying off these debts. And when I did that amount that came out to be a six-figure amount, I didn't factor in all the other things. And I think that's where my line of thought went this fall, about 3-4 months ago, was I started thinking, man, not only did you have that losses that you actually lost at the table, but then all these other financial issues that you caused by not paying the bills when they were due. And so now I started adding that lump in, and that was almost equal to my losses at the poker table were these extra fees. And when I think back about credit cards, when you have credit cards that are all maxed out and you're making minimum payments, it never gets paid off. So that's money that you're just flushing down the toilet, and it's just escalating and escalating. So not only did I have the losses at the table, but then I had these other bills that were adding up and are basically gambling losses, because the only reason they weren't paid is because I was spending my money and time playing poker, and that was my number one priority, not taking care of these important things. So that was kind of a struggle. When I started adding those numbers in, all of a sudden the number grew quite a bit. And then my thoughts went down an even more negative point of view, which was, not only did you lose all that, you didn't invest in your business, so your business didn't grow to a certain point. You didn't invest in retirement, so you don't have a situation where you have retirement money, which would have grown exponentially. So kind of the time value of the money lost, not only is it just that lump sum, but there's a multiple of it. If you would have taken that money and invested it into a house or into retirement, it would have grown into something that's even more. And so I really started thinking, and all of a sudden the number was just enormous. When you took my losses plus the excess debt that I created for myself, and then compounded that with the lost opportunity of the money and the time. And so when I put all these things together and I just kind of projected out towards retirement time, I was like, man, my gambling cost me millions of dollars. The 6 figures lost would have multiplied into probably several $1 million. And so that was, needless to say, a rough thought process when I did that. But I don't know what happened, but it was almost instantly that my thought process after that, I didn't wallow in my sorrows too long. I started to think about it a little bit more, and I said, you know what? I always tell people at GA now, and other people in my life that know, that it's weird, but I feel fortunate to have gone through what I did, and that I paid a significant price, but it's given me this awareness that I can live with for the rest of my life about not only my gambling, but I've learned so much about myself personally that I think I've grown as a person, and I'm going to be a better husband, be a better father, and be a better just human to everyone around me. And I don't know that I would have done that if I hadn't gone through these issues. And I look back, and I was always a nice person. I always cared about other people, but this has really elevated me to a new level of personal performance, and just kind of, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm a much better person in a much better place. And looking back, I'm not sure that I would have gotten to this point anywhere near the age that I currently am now in my mid-30s. I think I would have gotten there eventually, but it would have taken some kind of teardown of some type. Well, there was a giant failure in another area of my life to get to this place. So when I really start to look at that and I take that step back and say, okay, there was this huge financial loss, but as a result of all of the struggles I've gone through, as a result of these 7.5 years of paying back debts, I've grown so much, I've learned so much, and I've gained such a valuable perspective on life and myself that it's become all worth it. And so this is just kind of a different way of thinking that's allowing me to come to grips with the money aspect. And now I don't even think about the money too much. I shouldn't lie. I still think about the money. I'm still paying off debts, but it doesn't seem like the burden. And when you look at the money spent to get to this point, it's something that I wouldn't go back and change it. And I would go back and change the impact it had on my family's life, and the people that are closest to me, because it had a huge impact on their lives. And that's something I can't go back and fix. It's just always going to be a part of our history. And I've seen stats that says a compulsive gambler impacts 10 other lives, and that's very true. I look at mine, and I'm definitely right in that number, that my gambling problem didn't just affect me, but affected probably right around 10 other people in my life. But again, as you look at this, you have to look at it as water under the bridge. You can't look back too much. I think it's important to look back, and I think part of this is it's important to look back and know what you've gone through and the price that you've paid, so you don't go back and pay it again, because you've already paid the price of admission to this level of awareness, to this new perspective on life. So don't go back and do it again. But I just encourage you to think a bit bigger and look at, okay, what things in my life can I do going forward to take this negative situation and take this payment that I already have, because it's a sunk cost. And if you're not familiar with sunk cost, look that up and look up sunk cost fallacy. And so many times, the concept is that we continue to invest money in something that we know is a loser just because we can't deal with chalking it up as a loser. Now I've gotten to this place where I can look back and say, when it comes to gambling, I'm going to be a lifetime loser. I'm not going to win this game, which is fine. It cost me a lot of money, but now it's also given me this new perspective on life. So I'm not trying to look back on the past. I'm looking forward and saying, what can I learn from this experience to make each day going forward even better than it would have been had I not gone through it? So hopefully this gets you thinking. And whether you've quit gambling for an hour or a few days or a few weeks or months or years, look back. What are some things that you've been able to do now that you would have never been able to do had you not gone through this problem? Maybe you wouldn't have had that awareness to go say hi to a loved one when you can, to go see a grandmother, to go hang out with friends, to really soak in these life experiences that now you realize are so valuable, when before they just seemed like, well, I'll get to them eventually. So I guess just in wrapping this one up, look back. I think it's important to understand the financial impact on your life, but use that and figure out, okay, now I've paid that price. How can I get the most out of it? How can I squeeze the most value out of the life lessons that I've learned to apply them to my life to make every day a better day than the day before? Because that's all we can do, is we can wake up and try to go to bed a better person than when we woke up. And if we do that, that's a huge success. Now, before you go, I'd like to go over a few very important things. First of all, I think it's important to remember that problem gambling is a treatable disorder. There's no scientific evidence or study that suggests that this is just a terminal condition and that we're going to be forced to deal with the negative side effects and results of our actions for the rest of our lives. And so while I know that in the moment it feels like this is something that you're going to be struggling with for the rest of your life, science just doesn't back that up. Recovery is real, but we just need to seek out treatment. And so that brings me to point number 2, which is that help is available. Many of the states here in the United States actually offer free counseling and therapy for not only gamblers, but family members as well. And so you just need to know that these programs are available. And the best way to start finding out more information is to call the hotline number. And that's 1-800-522-4700. Again, that's 1-800-522-4700. And this is the number run by the National Council on Problem Gambling. And so it covers all 50 states, and they're going to have information and be able to start to guide you on the path to seek out help in the area where you live. And these hotlines aren't just available here in the United States. They're available around the world. So just simply open up a web browser, type in gambling help, gambling hotline, and you'll be able to find the information for your local area. In addition to the hotlines, there are numerous places where you can find gambling support and information online. If you go to gamblingstillsucks.com/help, I'll list some of these things, and I'll continue to add to this as I find new resources, whether they're chat groups or online forums or just great information. So again, that was gamblingstillsucks.com/help. As a disclaimer, this podcast does not provide legal or medical advice. Look, I'm not a doctor, a therapist, or an attorney. I'm just a guy who had a gambling problem. So while we'll discuss a lot of topics and I'll provide a lot of insight into what's worked for me, please seek out the help of a professional. Go visit a lawyer, a doctor, or a therapist to help you deal with your gambling problem. The information that we discuss is for informational purposes and should not be taken as professional legal or medical advice. And reliance on the information appearing on the podcast is solely at your own risk. The music for this podcast is Something Elated by Broke for Free and licensed under the Creative Commons.